Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're rolling. Okay, great. All right. Chris, so first off, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Great. Good to hear. Um, well, first, why don't we tell for people that will be viewing this, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? And you can start off by just saying your name. Yeah.
Well, I'm Christopher Ambriz. I am a communication specialist over at Texas A&M University Kingsville. I'm also a filmmaker based out of here in Corpus Christi, Texas. I have a horror film out on Amazon and Tubi TV called Muerte Tales of Horror, where I'm wearing the shirt representing. I like to do art. I like to sculpt and do special effects, makeup, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Big horror fan.
And um, tell us about how you became such a big horror fan.
Oh wow. I guess it started when I was about in the sixth grade. I got into going to the video stores and renting horror films with my parents and watching them, and caught the bug that way. It's about like 11 or 12 at the time, and I like to write, so I wrote some short stories that were kind of horror based, and then yeah, I guess when I was about 13, I decided to make my first little short film, which was called Mutant Killer. It was set at my middle school where a kid ate some radioactive cafeteria food and it turned him into a monster and he killed other students and they all turned into like little mutated versions of him and they went running around the neighborhood killing people. So, yeah, that was my first one.
Awesome. And I forgot to mention we should disclose, full disclosure, that Chris and I used to work together. We used to work as colleagues. I was working as a reporter at the time. We were working as a photojournalist
Right.
for KIII TV in Corpus Christi, Texas, local ABC affiliate. And so that's how we got to know each other. Um, you know,
Few
for,
years. Few
yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, I should have said I was also a former photojournalist for KIII.
Very good. And we would spend a lot of conversations talking about movies, a lot of conversations in the
Quite a
car,
few,
going from
quite a
story.
few conversations.
Yeah. And that was something I always respected about you is just your passion for movies um and so yeah, so bring us up to speed in terms of your path, in terms of you mentioned, some of your earliest projects and how you got into horror, and then how did it go from there?
Yeah, I guess that one, I guess in middle school was the first time I really tried to do something, just like with that creativity. Then in high school, I did my second short film, which was called Fangs. It was about some kids that had another that were kind of curious about one of their classmates who got to be a vampire, and he was after them. And the other two guys were like discovered a secret, very Fright Night esque, I guess, in a way. And they they try to battle him, and it turns all bloody and crazy. It was what I could do at that time when I was like, I think a freshman or a sophomore in high school. Very rudimentary, very very rough. VHS, VCR to VCR at the time. Uh, did a couple more shorts and skits over the years until I got to Delmar College and I took the radio television film courses over there. And then that led into, getting better at editing, the projects. And then we did our very first horror film, like legit horror film in 99. It took us about 98, 99. It took us about 2 years to make it. And it was called Dark Blood. And it was kind of a reimagining of that high school film. And but we expanded the story. We added more characters. We got a lot better with the special effects at that point, and that's what led into us really kind of tackling it and really getting really getting into filmmaking at that point. and it was really tough. It was a 2-year process. A lot of people came in, a lot of people came out, had to start, restart making the film. And then I think by about, I guess it was like the spring of 2000 that we had a screening at Del Mar at the Bartlett Theater, and we didn't know what to expect. And then sure enough, we had a packed house, people wanting to check out this movie. And then that's where the bug kind of started to escalate from there. And you know, it was a thrill. It was a thrill to have seen something that we took 2 years of our lives making and see it come to fruition. Yeah, it's not the most perfect film at all. It's, you know, it's got a lot of faults. It's got a lot of issues, but you know, still, it was something that we set out to do and completed and screened it, and then we just took it from there. And then at that time, I think this is before digital. Well, I mean, digital existed, but it wasn't, you know, readily available to the people. So we did it the hard way. We shot it on 8mm. We transferred it to Super VHS, and then we did an offline edit from Super VHS to tape, and that's how we got our first cut of the film, tape to tape. And it was a long movie too. It was like over 90 minutes of tape to tape editing. It took several months to do.
That's you know, it's funny how the technology has changed. I mean, you know, you can speak to that. I mean, the differences in terms of editing, you know, then and now.
Yeah, it was so harder. We had to use a CG to do the credits at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film. To do that, you had to run it through a switcher. It was really complicated. It took a lot of time to get it right and to get it down. And nowadays, anybody can, with a PC or a laptop or anything really, can do what was complicated for us back then very easily now.
How long does it take you now on the projects you've been working on over the past few years? To how much time do you spend on a project?
Well, it depends on the project. If it's like a short film, it can take just a few months. With, like, you know, we hadn't done a feature film since Dark Blood, so that was when we got started with Muerte Tales of Horror. We started that in 2015. I was still at KIII at that time. I was just about to leave. And the pre-production on that took months of planning, months of once we casted the film. Originally, we were going to do another short film, and even with that one, it was live casting, several actors, sculpting, makeup effects, trying to figure out the logistics of the budget, the timing, the schedules, and stuff. So we started October 2015. We got into actually shooting in, I guess it was January 2016, and then finished that in mid 2016, and then we got the offer to expand it so we could get it released onto home video. So then from that point, we started making other segments to go along with that to flesh it out to make it a 90-minute film. So we got done probably mid 2018. So it took that long to get the film in the can, and editing as we went along. So the process was a little different because we finished one, edit it, shoot another one, finish it, and it took a bit of time. It took maybe about a year and a half's worth of editing, because then even still you're constantly trying to perfect it as best as you can given the limitations of your budget and the time that you had. And we were trying to give ourselves a deadline for the 2018 South Texas Underground Film Festival, and we had to give ourselves a cutoff point so we would finish, and it was getting pretty close to the line. So it always seems, even now, about 2 years, to answer your question.
What are some of the film festivals you've been a part of?
We did RXSM, which was part of, it was kind of like an offshoot. It was during South by Southwest, but it was more of the actual underground films that were going on at the same time. And sorry about that, just got a message. And that was my first getting outside of Corpus, going to Austin, getting into South by Southwest, meeting a lot of filmmakers. Then we did San Antonio Horrific Film Festival. We did South Texas Underground, as I mentioned before. We did. I'd have to go through the list, but we've done a lot. I think even with Kukui, I think because I did a short film called El Kukui back in 2012, and I think that one got submitted to La Garambia, quite a few film festivals, and it was a nice run. I got to meet a lot of different people, a lot of different filmmakers, and it's fun. It's a little bit of work. You have to travel a bit, but it pays off in the end, especially with the connections you make over the years and the things that you learn.
Are you self-financing, or do you raise money, or how does that work? Both.
Most of the time that we had done it, we did it between myself and my with my producing partner Luis Alvarado. We usually just kind of threw in money, credit cards, that kind of thing, and stuff like that for the first few films. Then I think when we got into doing the date segment for Muerte, we tried crowdfunding. We raised about a quarter of the budget through Indiegogo. We did a campaign with that, and what we did with that too, as we were learning how to do that part of it, is we did a proof of concept trailer for the film to kind of give people what the idea of what the movie was supposed to look like to get investment. So we raised actually pretty much the special effects budget doing it that way. And that was a learning experience. It wasn't enough to make the film per se. We still had to kick in our own money. But we had at least, I would say, a third of the budget covered at that point. And that's when we kind of learned more about the business in that right.
Nice. Who are some of your favorite directors?
Oh, I've always been inspired by the Mavericks. I grew up watching George Romero's films. Dawn of the Dead is like one of my favorite films of all time. Of course, early Sam Raimi with Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. Those movies are definitely got a stamp of do-it-yourself filmmaking with such style and vigor. Same thing with the early Peter Jackson films with like Bad Taste back in '87. That was his first film. And then Dead Alive, which is Brain Dead Overseas. Meet the Feebles. He was definitely kind of a maverick filmmaker from New Zealand before he got into Lord of the Rings. Same thing with Sam Raimi with Spider-Man. Yeah, those are my three big. Robert Rodriguez with El Mariachi too. Definitely an inspiration there.
What do you think it is about the genre of horror that appeals to you, and B, what can a horror film do, a great horror film? Like what can it offer the viewer that different genres can, whether it's a drama or a comedy or what have you? What are the different sort of opportunities that a horror film presents?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's escapism. It's not so much you can put serious subjects in a horror film and use it as a theme. You can make it the monster. You can make it whatever what the plot is about, or at least the theme of the plot is about, and not be so direct about it. You don't have to say this is what I'm really talking about or anything, but you can use it as that kind of disguise for a horror film. I think horror films are a good way of breaking into the business. If you look at a lot of actors that started out in their careers, they usually started with a low budget horror film. It's a good training ground, because if you can do a horror film, then you can do a comedy and action film, anything else, because those things you're going to have to push. You're going to have, and especially if you're good at it. A lot of good actors can get that range of terrified and intense and funny and everything just by working on a good horror film. And I mean, it's a good way to start. And horror films have a very built-in audience. Even the lowest of the lowest horror films, you can get a following of horror if you understand the genre, if you understand what the horror fans are looking for. And they will follow you all the way to grave. You know, they're always Rabbit fans. You know, George Romero still has a huge fan base after his passing, as well as Toby Hooper and Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento. Even though Argento's still alive, but the point is that the fans are so rabid for their work. They're still many years after their passing, and still alive too.
Awesome. One thing, you know, that you and I used to talk a lot about is the concept of, and this is a talent in and of itself that you do, is, you know, as makeup. I mean, that's something you're really talented at, and that's something, you know, that's a, you know, a great skill that, you know, not a lot of people have. How did you develop that? And yeah.
A good question. Basically, makeup effects. If you're a horror fan, and you want to make horror films like I did back in the '90s, late '80s, early '90s, not to date myself, I studied. I wanted to make the movies, but I didn't want the special, you know, but I wanted to do the special effects too. So I started studying up with Fangoria magazine and Tom Savini's Grand Illusion. There was some Dick Smith makeup books. Yeah, you actually had to go to the library, read a book, and practice it on yourself or your friend. Yeah, there was no YouTube videos and stuff, but you were getting it from the source. You were getting it from the masters in a written form, and then you still had to fill in the gaps yourself by getting out there, going to the art shop, buying the plaster, buying the makeups, the paints, all that kind of stuff, and putting it on yourself, putting it on your friends. And I started doing that after I worked on my first one, because I wanted to not have to rely on somebody to do that, because there wasn't a lot of people in town in Corpus that knew how to do it. So I really kind of attacked it, and for better or worse, I used my effects to help drive some of my films a little bit too, you know, just so that, you know, any of my reviews that I've read, you know, they could hate my films, but they can still say, wow, the effects were really well done for absolutely nothing. And it kind of helped, and I just practice. I you know, just by reading those magazines and reading those books and practicing on my friends from age, I think 13 to even now, you know, that those are the skills that I developed over the years. And I can even see, looking back at some of my work, how I got more daring, I should say, you know, by doing multi-piece appliances and different types of masks and different types of effects to help whatever movie that I was working on. It was kind of the same thing. I'd be writing something and I was like, well, how would I do that? And then kind of a little bit of an experimentation and learning how to do it, and just applying it when it came up to time to doing it when we were filming it. So that's, you know, so I wore those two hats a lot. I would direct the film, and I would do the effects makeup as well, just to get my vision across. You know, if you have that idea of what you want your effect to look like, or something that you want in your film, I had the ability to do both things.
And that's probably, or is that as equally as important to you, that, you know, makeup and special effects, as the other aspects of making the film?
I think it's important if I need to be able to do it for the film, if the movie requires it in the story. And usually I would get to a point where it's like, okay, so this is going to happen in the film. How am I going to do it? And then I would kind of challenge myself that way. And I'd call my buddy Louis and say, hey, I want to try this effect on you. Do you think this would work? And how does this look? And then we would take it from there. We would do tests. We would do a lot of makeup tests. And then I would write it into the script and made sure that I could pull it off when we were trying to shoot it.
Cool. Tell us a little bit about Night Creature Productions.
Well, Night Creature Productions, it started as the banner for our shorts, essentially. And then in 1998, me and Lewis, we decided to turn it into an actual entity, you know, an actual real entity. So we went to the city, we registered, we had signed paperwork and stuff like that. And that's what started Night Creature Productions. And it was really just a company or a banner for us to make films with and to give us an identity with our brand. And we weren't even thinking of marketing at the time, but it was just, we didn't want it to be just about us. We wanted it to be about the films. So that's what Night Creature Productions was started about or for. And over the years, we did Dark Blood. That was our first official film, was Dark Blood. And then we did Faceless in 2001. We did One Dark Night in 2007. And then we did that series of short films, Pen, El Cucuy, The Night Before, and other projects too in between all that. But that was our home base, was the Night Creature banner. And of course, I mean, we don't do a lot of outside projects and stuff like that, but we have on occasion.
Do you think, is it like, how challenging is it to, be a filmmaker in South Texas as opposed to, being in LA or New York? Do you ever envision yourself going out to one of those places, or do you like where you're at?
I've actually gotten on this last project, or at least last two films, I've worked with a lot of people out of Los Angeles. And I'm not going to name names or anything, but what I have noticed about the business, at least from my perspective, is they know it all and we don't. And what I do like about working here in South Texas is having the freedom to create, the freedom to do my vision, my stories, my films, and have their particular stamp, for better or worse, whatever it is, your ownership of your material. I noticed if you start working in Hollywood, based on what level you're working in, that the higher up, the less control you have over your final cut, your final output. And if it's paying my bills, fine. That's what I signed up for. Then I'm a gun for hire. But if it's my own money, my own time, and my own idea, I want to have as much control over the final product as possible. Maybe that's just, me being me, but ultimately I think that's what I like about working here, is having as much control over the project as possible. The downside to that is finding, unlike in Los Angeles or New York or any bigger city, the talent pool and, well, just the talent pool in general is a lot more shallower. So you're kind of at the mercy of who's around that's willing to work with you, willing to work on a low budget, and know what they're doing, and getting the vision, whatever the story, whatever the picture is about, done correctly, and fighting. I think you have a lot more battles to fight, getting people to, and around here in Corpus, and I mean, you notice this, working around here, it's a very kind of laid back, kind of very, sleepy town. There's not a lot of a lot of people moving and shaking when it comes to that kind of thing. So you really have to turn over a lot of rocks to find the right people to work with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I heard Rob Zombie on Rogan talking about how some of the challenges he ran into in terms of not having control of, what he wanted a film to look like, his vision, and how frustrating that was.
And he pointed out a lot of interesting things about the studio business, and even my small dealings with them on two projects. It's been a learning experience, especially how people approach people when it comes to your IP, your intellectual property.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. And do you? I mean, you're the screenwriter. I mean, you pretty much do it all, right? Or how does that work? Do you collaborate with others? Or?
I do collaborate with others. You actually know Michelle Banks. She wrote part of Muerte with me, and we worked on other shorts as well. So I've collaborated with her. I collaborate with Lewis. I've collaborated with Jessica Golden and Will McCann, and I try to bring in as many people as they want to be a part of the process. And sometimes it's very fruitful, sometimes it's not. Because you still have to. Some people have to deal with the fact that so-and-so, myself, is in charge of production. They are not the ones that are going to end up having the reviews written about them, or dealing with the people front lines and stuff like that. It still comes to me being the head of production, the head of the film, and and some of that has to be let go. And then on the flip side of me is sometimes I have to let go. I'd have to trust my director of photography, my producers, you know, and everybody doing their job and doing it to the best of their abilities. So there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to those things. And sometimes it doesn't always work out the best. Sometimes people have a hard time letting go of certain things. And I guess when people are working, especially for us working in the news business, you get assigned something, you go out and do it the best way you want, but at the end, it's still your boss that says yes or no and how that story comes out.
Yeah, 100%. Is there, what are you most proud of what you've done?
In my early career, I was very, in my career, we've been doing Night Creature Productions since '98, so that's what, 21 years now, going on 22. Finishing Darkblood was a huge milestone for us, because at the time we were still really young and kind of crazy. And while we could have gone a lot of different directions, we stuck with it. We stuck to our guns. We got it done. It wasn't perfect. Again, I reiterate, but we got it done. And that was a big movement for me. And I still look back with it, bittersweet, a lot of feelings about it. Faceless comes in second because that was the first time we actually got a professional camera. We got a computer to edit a film. This is back in 2000, 2001. So we were crashing and burning, but learning at the same time the technology, trying to get ahead of the curve at that point, especially with filmmaking. And I'm really proud about how that film came out, just on the terms of how it looked and how it, we really were learning our craft. I mean, and then recently just getting through Muerte, because there were so many obstacles on going back and doing a film of that size and with that caliber and dealing with egos and schedules and not enough money and being very ambitious, but trying to accomplish something. It was tough, and I'm very proud of how far that went, and and having it out there now and for distribution. Even though that's a whole different ball of wax too, but to have gone that far with just a simple little idea and taking it to that extreme. But yeah, I'm very proud of that film too.
And then you mentioned that earlier. I mean, people can watch it on Amazon right now, right?
Yeah, Amazon, Tubi TV. If you have Comcast service, it's on Comcast. I'm pretty sure it's pirated somewhere online. Yeah, and it's also available on disc, or it's going to be available on disc too, which we put a lot of work on those DVDs and Blu-rays, and they have a lot of features, commentaries, behind the scenes, gag reel, test footage. We really, we're not really like secretive about how we do things. We did them on a shoestring. We did them on a very low budget, and but it can be done, and it can be done as well as you let yourself do.
Are any of your other projects available?
Yeah, most shorts and music videos and stuff are on our Night Creature Productions YouTube channel. We've been putting a lot of effort into having a social media presence on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and a lot of it, you get to see where we started, where we came from, and where we're at now, and what the process is.
And do you like Amazon, or why did you choose that particular venue as opposed to Netflix or what have you, other ones?
Well, I have really absolutely very to no control over how that portion of distribution works. The company that we went through, they set up the deals with all the outlets, and whoever was they do all the negotiations. So Amazon's one of the first lines of getting your movie out there, because that's the largest market in the world. And then they have like Pluto TV, Tubi TV, Comcast, all the VOD channels as well, Roku, and they're the ones that set up those deals for distribution. So that's pretty much how it works. We didn't have any control over it at all. We didn't even know when we were coming out at one point. We just knew it was there one day.
Cool. Um, and just to be clear, when we talk about Amazon, or because there's Amazon Prime, and then there's available for purchase as
Yeah.
well.
That was the other interesting thing too, because apparently if you don't go through the MPA, and this is learning about the business too, if you don't go through MPAA's rating system, Amazon will rate your projects for you. They have their own people that will look at it and they'll determine whether it's Amazon Prime material. And we found ourselves being on a little too of the gory side for their taste. So we were immediately slapped with the 18 plus, which means we're not eligible to be on Amazon Prime for violent content. And they
Wow,
weren't very specific on what it was that bothered them.
that's
So
crazy.
yeah, it's very they have their own, and I've seen stuff on Amazon Prime that's just as gory, if not more, than what we were doing, but we don't have the same marketing and backing to fight all that. So
Yeah.
we're just like any other low budget horror film coming out of any small town in the United States. Um, you know, so that was a learning experience, and then all the demands that our distributor were trying to get us to do to conform the film, and that again, that wasn't what we were all about too. We wanted to make, if we have any fans, we wanted to make the movie for them, and we wanted to stick to our guns, and we didn't want to neuter it to a PG-13 or anything like that. So we kept it pretty legit as best as we could. I don't know if that hurt us or helped us or whatnot, but that's just part of the business too.
Obviously, we're living in a crazy time right now with the coronavirus pandemic going on, and it's going to change and make us, reshape and rethink about the ways in which we gather and all of that. But putting that aside, what are your views on, watching something, on a television or a computer or a phone as opposed to in a theater, in a physical theater?
Very, very good question. Um, Seeing my film for the first time in an Alamo Draft House, and then we did a tour afterwards of different draft houses, taking the cast with us and stuff, and doing Q&As and stuff. There's nothing like it, especially with a big screen, a giant screen, and a bunch of people getting rowdy and having a few drinks and laughing and gasping and having that communal experience together. It's always fun. It's always a great way to see people and get kind of feedback live on how things worked or didn't work on your project. Having it on streaming or having it at home, all I can read is the haters and the people that do like it. But there's a certain amount of detachment that comes from having it just so available to you, and you're just taking a shot, and you're either a captive audience or you're not. But in a movie theater, you're forced to pay attention because you paid your money. You want to sit down and spend these 90 minutes with these crazy people and get what it is that the story that they were trying to tell. Whereas it's much more just so random, I think, now with streaming. I mean, it's still a good way to get your films out there and stuff, but it's not as direct, I think. And it's not as fun.
Have you ever made a revision or a change to a movie or a short film or project based upon how an audience reacted to something?
Yeah, we did it with Muerte. I think what we learned on that little tour that we did from Corpus to San Antonio to Austin was every time we heard something that we missed, maybe in a mix or just some things that didn't play out as well as we thought the first time. We did some trims, we did some remixing, but generally everything stayed the same. But we just refined that. That kind of helped us get it to where when we put it out on home video on Amazon and Tubi and stuff, that it was the best that we could do for the amount of money and time that we had. And on another film, specifically Darkblood, my first cut was way too long. And of course, when you first start out, you want everything's important, and you don't have that sense of detachment as an editor to your own material because you spent so long making it and filming these things, and you don't see it the same way. But then when you come back with a little bit more experience, you're all, that's not as important as it was. So then you find yourself being a little bit more objective. And I went back and recut it tighter to be leaner. And that's just being a good editor in general. It's just seeing what's important and what's not important, and telling the story more efficiently.
Cool. What's coming down the pike? What do you have lined up for the future?
Good question. Right now, we've got 3 projects that we're working on. I have 2 full-length screenplays, feature-length screenplays that are in development right now. And since I've had time to actually sit down and write, I've gotten through 2 drafts on one and a final draft on another. And based on how things have been going with all the other projects that we have out right now, and what I've learned about the business, it's like, how do we make these movies efficiently at a low cost and then make a return when we try to sell them out into the public? So we're developing those projects, and we're trying to do it efficiently, more efficient than we have ever been, and also just gives us time now to take the things that may be a little bit more jankier out of them, or work them out better by having more people read them and get more feedback on those scripts. Another project that I'd like to do is that we did a couple of short films a few years ago, and they were all kind of interconnected, but they didn't really end per se. So I started working on putting them together into one whole project with the whole new segment that we can release hopefully very soon, once everything starts to settle down. And we would like to definitely get started on that and finish that as soon as possible and get that out there for 2021 or mid 2021. The other 2 films, the timeline is very open right now, but we would definitely like to get started on those, at some point too, when we have the proper resources, the proper time frame to do them. And of course, we'll spend some capital. One of the projects I'm working on, it's not a horror film. It's a drama/thriller coming of age story.
Wow. What are you mentioned some of the lessons you've learned in this process. What are some of the lessons you've learned, or things that maybe surprised you, or were ended up being different than you thought the industry might be, or the process might be?
My advice definitely to a filmmaker getting into it is to definitely shop around. Don't go with your first offer, even though you might end up still going with them, but definitely shop your idea around. Look into doing it yourself if it's feasible. If you've spent a lot of money and you spend it on your film, you definitely want somebody to go out there and represent your film the best way possible to get the widest audience, especially out on video, because they should have the resources to back your film up. Because marketing, I've discovered, and going into my next point, marketing your film, you should probably, if you're going to spend say $5,000-$10,000 on a movie, just giving you a rough number, you should plan to spend at least that much in getting the word out, if not more. That was a big lesson I learned. Was marketing is key. Branding is key. Getting people that are your cast is not just your cast anymore. Your cast is now a group of influencers for your project. So they're as instrumental as pushing your product, your brand out there to the public as anybody else is. So you have to get the right people that are going to help you get the word out too. And that's very important. Again, with casting, definitely don't always go with who's available, but also on the same page as you. Don't believe everything that everybody tells you. Definitely do your research when it comes to things. Get a lot of input from professionals that have been in the business, that have done it before. Reach out, not just your small circle of people in your town, but people that have gone to film festival circuits, that have gone to market, all that kind of stuff. They'll definitely tell you what the real things are in the business.
Very good. Yeah. Is there anything we haven't touched upon that you wanted to mention? Anything we missed?
More of just me saying that, I've been doing this for a long time. You have to have passion for the story that you're telling and what you're trying to get across. People are going to try to, and especially now with so many things coming at you, both on YouTube and streaming and all these different services and stuff, try to really come to the core of what you are about as a filmmaker, as an actor, as a producer, and try to find your voice, as best as you can. I mean, if you love it, you don't worry about the money. If you love it, you don't worry about what people are going to say, because I think everybody's going to have an opinion, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that's what drives a lot of people to not try as hard or not try as much. And I've seen people just throw everything out there, but without a lot of thought behind it. And be very thoughtful about what you want to do, and that's what I would tell anybody. Don't rush into something if you're not ready.
And, now it's kind of the best of times and the worst of times, in the sense of there's less barrier to entry. And so, you can make a movie, put it up online, put it on YouTube or, wherever, and it can have a worldwide distribution. You don't have to go through a movie studio. You don't have to go through a major corporation. But at the same time, like you said, there's so much content that it's probably very difficult to actually break through all of it.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I was mentioning before, and I'll say this again, it's definitely having the right amount of branding behind your, right amount of marketing behind your brand, and having the right message about what your film is and who it's appealing to.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you'll find your audience based on that. I think a lot of people don't think about those things, and I certainly never did making my movies. I was just making movies that I wanted to see, that I would want to see. I was doing it more for myself than an audience. Now I try to think about what I want to see as an audience member, but how do I hit a broader stroke as well? And that's a challenge, especially with so much content out there. Are you a filmmaker that's more aimed towards a younger audience, an older audience, a specific audience, a niche audience? You have to really ask yourself those questions every time you start applying yourself to a project. And when you're trying to sell that project, who's the best fit for getting your message out there? Who's going to be the best supporter, cheerleader for your project? You need that support, because a lot of times, and I've been there as well too. I've been beaten down, second guess myself, maybe, or third guess myself on many decisions. But then again too, it's like the more you do it, the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about what you like to do and how you do it and who you do it with.
Is there a filmmaker that you sort of look to as like, oh, they're the blueprint, or they did it the right way, or they were able to, make it? Maybe they started in horror and started small, and is there anyone like that you try and model your career after, or inspired you?
It's kind of hard to say, because everybody has their own path, and that can be applied to anything. And if you model yourself after somebody or someone, I think you kind of lose your own identity in the process. I mean, it's great to pay homage to the people that have trailblazed before you, but this, and I know this as well, is that things weren't the same in the 70s and the 80s and 90s as they are going into the 21st century. So you can't really, what worked 5 years ago is not going to work today. Business model is constantly evolving. And you kind of have to really kind of step away from that thought that this is how it always worked and kind of make it work your own way. Mm-hmm. And I've heard somebody say this too, and I kind of believe this, is that you don't give them what you want, but you give them something they don't know they wanted in some capacity.
Interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Um, and you're on IMDb, right?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, obviously, if people want to learn more about you and your material, um, the best, can you sort of plug all the different places to go?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I can. Well, we have a website, nightcreatureproductions.com. Has a lot of information about projects that we're working on, projects that we've done, and it does a really good job of breaking us down and over the years, you know. And I mean, I still consider myself evolving, you know, learning, making mistakes, and getting burned here and there, and trying to course correct every so often about it. But yeah, Night Creature Productions is definitely a good way to start with us because we have that website and definitely need traffic going to that. We're on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, so you can just look at Night Creature Productions and we'll pop up somewhere. Um, and we're also on IMDb. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we really want to push on that direction, but I think we covered it right there.
cool. Awesome. It's funny. I heard there's a clip of Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I think it was on Larry King or something years ago, talking about how the way that people used to look at channels, whether it's ABC, CBS, NBC, whatever. Like now, it's like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Like those are the channels. It's just like a whole. That's to your point. I mean, how much things have changed. You know. Um, but yeah, that's awesome, man. And yeah, hats off to you. I respect you so much for pursuing this passion and for following your dreams and following your heart and continuing at this and making this happen. And how successful you've been. And yeah, and so it's great to talk with you about all of that and catch up with you.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you. I know it's been a spell since we've last talked, and
Yeah,
a lot of things have happened.
right.
Great things. A lot of bad things too, and that's life in a nutshell as well. And I'll
Hmm.
tell anybody that just if you're passionate about your music, passionate about your writing, passionate about your art, your filmmaking, your jobs and stuff, you definitely stick to your guns. It may not happen right away. It might not happen overnight. But it will happen, and you just got to do what you feel is right. You got to do what makes you happy in the long run too. But then hopefully you make other people happy, and and you don't. I hate what's the word? I guess sell out too. You just do things to do things.
Right.
I think people should try to always inject a little bit of passion, or a lot of passion, I should say, into what they're doing.
I
You
agree
know.
with you 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Easier said than done, like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not necessarily, people say that, but then when the rubber meets the road, you meet a lot of resistance.
Oh yeah. All
Yeah.
the time.
Absolutely. So cool, man. So, again, great talking with you and continued success. We wish you. And yeah, absolutely. I encourage everyone to check out your project, check out your website, check out your social media. And yeah, awesome. I'm going to, is there anything else you want to say?
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I'm going to hit stop this recording.